Few people can see the relationship between the inequities of the poor and marginalized groups and our need to conserve natural resources. Here in the U.S., the conquest of indigenous peoples and the historical legacy of African slavery have created an imbalance of resource allocation and political power. Most people readily assume that the poor and minorities are not interested in the environment, or that the wisdom and knowledge of people who lived in balance with the environment, their spiritual teachings, ways of harvesting and hunting methods, are primitive means, especially in the ever modernizing and globalized world where technology pushes our social relationships and economic gain. However, in this presentation, I hope to show how these so-called primitive means are the source of all our knowledge in conserving resources, preserving other species, and cooperative socio-spatial relationships. I will use examples of how the Pygmies of Central Africa live and how we can learn from this threatened hunter-gatherer culture. There is no doubt that the color of one's skin, the ethnic group that they belong to, and the perception of them held by the dominant populations or cultures can both directly and indirectly affect the socio-economic status or lifestyle of the subpopulation. The most obvious example is the present state and history of Americans of African descent. The civil rights movement did much to alleviate inequalities of American Africans, Latin and Caribbean peoples, Asians, and other people of color. However, the remnants of past racial injustice still affect American society. Native peoples still suffer the loss of their culture, and this seems to be a common occurrence in the past and neocolonialism that is taking place all over the world as a result of globalization. Considering the history of the African continent, the Pygmies are definitely not immune to these effects of globalization.
This is Cameroon, a richly endowed country which benefits from its location on the North Atlantic coast. Here there are many natural resources, from petroleum to timber. It boasts 17 million hectares of tropical rainforest, making it one of Africa's best suppliers of timber. Logging has become extremely profitable for Cameroon, and the country is exploiting its assets to the full. With only 7% of this rainforest protected by government, there are rich pickings for the timber companies. Many of the trees felled are over 900 years old and form the heart of the forest's ecosystem. The Pygmies witness their habitat disappearing, and with it, any hope of maintaining their way of life. Ironically, for many Pygmies, the only way out is to find work with the logging companies, and by doing this, contributing to their environment's destruction. This is a French logging company, and is typical of the way many businesses now work in Cameroon. Until recently, logs were simply felled here, and then immediately shipped out of the country. However, the law now requires them to be processed in the villages where they're felled. This policy is designed to help the Pygmies, but rarely more than a few find work here. Those that are fortunate enough to be employed are usually stuck at the bottom of the pecking order. They are tolerated by the other workers, but not respected, and often get the menial jobs to do. Jean-Claude Escassou is one of 6 European managers at the timber factory. He finds the Pygmies difficult to work with and feels they are undesirable employees.
It's hard to work with Pygmies. When the hunting season or harvest time arrives, they simply leave, sometimes for 15 days, sometimes for up to 3 weeks. For us, they're not people you can rely on. When people won't change their mentality, they can't be integrated into the workplace, especially not in a timber factory.
Lebongo is the local village and was established by the timber company. It houses over 8,000 people from all corners of the country. Most of the workers are Bantu. the predominant black population in Cameroon. The Pygmies struggle for respect amongst the Bantu. Damas Nyonga is one of the few Pygmies to find work in the timber industry and feels it's difficult.
It's the others. They don't want to work with us. The wages and the money. They want to share it amongst themselves. We always get the smallest amount.
Libongo survives only because of the timber industry. Its homes are constructed from the leftover wood, and the factory's wages enable the workers to trade. But the Pygmies here feel a lack of identity since they gave up their nomadic lifestyle. Their freedom is disappearing. They used to live at one with the forest. Now they work for the Bantu, or the whites. It's for hunting that the Bantu need the Pygmies' traditional skills. The Pygmies know the forest better than anyone. They know how to find food and water, and how to survive. They've grown up with animals and can imitate their sounds, like the bleat of a small gazelle in distress. The monkeys are inquisitive, and that's their death sentence. From a distance of 40 meters, he's right on target. Monkeys are hard to kill, but the hunter gets him straight in the heart. The machete takes care of the rest. It's the law of the jungle here, and the Pygmies see no reason to change it. Matthias Heinz works for a German development organization, GTZ. Together with the World Wildlife Fund, he wants to make another 6,000 square kilometers of rainforest a protected zone.
We're standing here in the middle of the Congo forest block, the second largest area of rainforest on Earth after the Amazon. It's been exploited for years, and events are taking their expected toll. Logging is continuing despite all the protests in Europe.